I have to say that on my different trips, when I visit Norway and I speak to salmon industry people, it's surprising how often AquaBounty comes up. And it's very clear that that industry is watching very closely what you're doing. And I think for them, probably if I was speaking on their behalf, one of the key questions they probably would have is what type of, how will consumers react to this product? And I think you mentioned in the Wall Street Journal interview that you have done some consumer studies and got a little bit of feedback about what customers would potentially say and think and how they would react. Could you give us a little bit of a sense of what your customer, your feedback has shown you so far?
Sure. We did an extensive both qualitative and quantitative consumer research. And because we really did want to understand basically two things. How do consumers react to farmed salmon? Because there's been, there's been stated concerns about, farmed salmon has issues when compared to wild caught. And so we wanted to understand how consumers think about farmed salmon and what those concerns might be. And then the second was, how do they react to genetically modified or genetically engineered? And so we started with a qualitative discussion, which is really just focus groups. And then we used that qualitative research to test reactions to different messaging and then ask them, their willingness to purchase or purchase intent. And what we found was, yes, there is a very vocal minority that are concerned. You're never going to convince them that anything genetically engineered is good for them or for the planet. Okay, fine. Not based on fact, but that left 80% of the population that is either neutral to highly likely to purchase our salmon once they understood the why, right, and the benefit to them, right? And so that gave us a 70% purchase intent, which is double what you'd look for in terms of the potential success of a new product. And so that's where I think that, when we're allowed to tell our story, and the other component of the way that we think about the market is, our largest, or in the US, what is currently our largest competitor from a land-based perspective has a bit of a premium pricing strategy, and because of all the benefits. We take a different view, and that is we want to be at commodity prices or better because we want access to a very healthy protein to be provided to a wide range of consumers. And I shop at Whole Foods. They have a policy that says no GMOs. Okay, but there's a lot of people that don't shop at Whole Foods that need access to a healthy, nutritious protein. And if you think about the health challenges in this country, that's why we believe that creating broader access and affordability to salmon is really part of our purpose.
Right. And you've had a long, distinguished career in the food service industry with US Foods. What would be your strategy? Will you approach food service first? Obviously, it's had a rough time in the pandemic. Or are you looking more at the retail channels?
We look at both. And quite frankly, we're looking at the direct-to-consumer and direct-to-business channel. One of the outcomes of the pandemic is consumers have changed their buying patterns. We're doing a lot more e-commerce. And so we want to understand how we participate in direct-to-consumer or direct-to a business. I think that dynamic, much of it's going to continue. But we're talking to retailers and we're talking to food service. And in particular, what I would consider to be the culinary community within food service. Because, chefs, you get a chef's attention and you show them a quality product and they want to be on the leading edge and they want to be sustainable. And that's a conversation that we can have. And we do a lot with the Culinary Institute of America because we think that both, food service, certainly, retail, absolutely, but a broader segment of retail, and then direct to consumer are all opportunities for us to bring our salmon to market.
Right. Have you looked at locking in any early supply contracts with consumers or potential customers, or are you more looking at a sort of spot market situation?
We're having conversations about both, right? A lot of, particularly the food service channel, because it's still recovering, there's that concern about commitments. But we've actually had a number of inquiries around long-term supply agreements, because one of the benefits of land-based farming, the way that we do it, is we control our cost. And so we can commit to those longer-term volume and price agreements because we know what our input costs are going to be. Right. And so there's a lot of interest in that, and domestic source of supply. One of the things that one of the challenges we saw with the pandemic was the supply chain interruption. And because we control our environment and we're domestic, you're now we're a net importer of salmon. We're now able to supply, locally, if you will. And so there's a lot of interest around that aspect of our business. And I think, right now I said we're in the we've had a ton of inbound interest from potential customers, and we're in that sampling phase of commercialization, because tasting is believing, if you will. They want to see it, they want to taste it, they want to prepare it. And so we've done that with a number of potential customers, and we're doing it with a number of chefs, because again, having that culinary view and advocacy is going to help us bring that product to market.